of our national motto, and it's always going to be up there. You know, they want to take everything down. They don't want Thomas Jefferson anymore. They don't want anything. That's a terrible thing, and we fight for it now. We fight. These words will never be taken off. I don't care where I am. If I'm up there, if I'm down here, I don't know. But we'll be fighting. We'll never take these words off. In God we trust.
Donald Trump has been impeached. The President of the United States has been impeached. Concurrently, while he was being impeached, and this is what it looks like, all of these guys just kind of shuffling about. As he's being impeached, Donald Trump has a barn burner of a Michigan rally. Scores and scores of people show up at this rally, and Donald Trump essentially takes the Democratic Party to task, the intelligence services to task. Everybody's against him. Everybody's out to get him. And the catch here is, unfortunately, it's not like he doesn't entirely have a point.
Well, look, based on the FBI report, you just saw what happened with the IG where they came out with the FBI. Based on that, you know what? I never stopped you, but now think of what they did. Think of what they did. Think of how dishonest it all was. They shouldn't even be allowed to have an impeachment because it was based on dishonesty. It was based on illegality. She went out and they paid for a fake dossier. They gave money to foreigners to write a fake dossier. Totally disproven, totally fake. The FBI then took that fake dossier and they used it in the FISA court to get approval to spy on my campaign.
Everything he just said there was true. Everything, love him, hate him, whatever you want to say, everything that Donald Trump just said there was true. Trump lies as easily as he breathes, and yet, on this very specific instance, he's right. For all intents and purposes, one side, one party paid cash for a dossier that was full of conspiracy theories. They got stovepipe into the intelligence community, whereby a FISA warrant was used to spy on the Trump campaign, and, not to mention the human assets and everything else. But it became clear that the stuff in that dossier was nonsense. They even went to Steele Source, and Steele Source said he's lying. And they still continued to spy on the Trump campaign. Whatever you want to think about him, what he said here is correct. Yes, congratulations, you've impeached the President of the United States. But there will be consequences. Meaning, you got your cathartic release. There are Democrats all across the United States like, yes, got him. Now what? Now what? Do you think he's getting out of office? The answer is no, he's not getting out of office. And not just that. I would even go so far as to say he will be stronger because of the impeachment. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. Let's talk about it. Groundhog's Day. I hated the first video, and I got some of the stuff wrong. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. We can call it Soapbox After Dark. Guys, if you dig this content, you find yourself coming back often, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This video will be instantly demonetized, so it is really brought to you by you. I sat there and watched the impeachment, at the very least the end. I've called this a circus. Now, this is something that is really taking place. Donald Trump has really been impeached in the House, but I've called this a circus. I've derided it as such. Let me explain why. It's true that this is a legislative, you might call it a legalese process. That's what's taking place on the ground level when they're making these votes and these articles and all of this other stuff. But when they're making their arguments,
completely partisan impeachment.
Who do you think this guy is making his argument for?
Mr. Speaker,
I mean, whether you have Maxine Waters,
in office. and has acted in a manner.
Or whether you have the next
Titus for
person,
unanimous
who do
consent
you
request.
think they're making their arguments for? Now, Rashid Tlaib went so far early on telling her kid, I'm going to impeach this motherfucker. I'm going to impeach this motherfucker. Talking about the president. Maxine Waters, Miss Maxine, assaulted, outright abused journalist Michael Tracy, saying, we're here to impeach this president, young man. And you got what you wanted. But that's kind of the rub, right? It seems that from day one, from the day that Trump won that election, it seems that the argument and the role and the objective of the Democratic Party was to wrap him in knots and to get him out of office. And when the Russia stuff went belly up, when Mueller didn't deliver, and now the IG report, scathing in what it talks about from the standpoint of the deceit and the dishonesty of the FBI and the way that it pursued that case. Not to mention, we're still waiting for the Durham case. It is possible that the FBI was acting out of malicious intent. It's just that the IG couldn't make a choice between incompetence or maliciousness. Durham should go further. I'm making the point that this was overtly and over-the-top partisan, regardless of how it's being cast in the language that is being used right now. This speech is not for the members in Congress. They've already made up their minds. Their minds were made up early on. This speech is for you. It's for us. It's for the audience to consume. Ultimately, their minds are made up. The Democratic Party is trying to do two things. Move the needle in the public space, meaning getting the public firmly behind this notion of, yes, he needs to be impeached. And having that public to create a certain amount of public will to push the Republicans to abandon Trump and vote to impeach. Well, that didn't work. You got your legislative maneuver done, yes. But every Republican voted either nay or just didn't vote at all, meaning abstain. You did get most of the Democrats, but 3 Democrats decided to not vote, and 1 voted present. I guess the point I'm making is you didn't get any Republicans on your side. None. You went through this entire process, this entire circus, and you got no Republicans to back you on this. That means when you go to the Senate, most likely the same thing is going to be true. You're not going to get any Republicans backing you. Because why? Because you also failed in the first part, meaning the public didn't support it. The best that you got, the best that you can move the needle is 50-50. That's where you started from almost in the context of the election. All of this entire circus, and you failed in your aims, despite succeeding in the legislative front. Meaning all of this was done for political gain, for political expedience, the goal of tying the President of the United States up. And the President of the United States is going to run around the country and use this as a weapon to hit you with. Listen to this part. This is a younger version of Trump. Listen to what he says here.
All sorts of things. Do more.
Trump is having an interview, and in this interview, the conversation of impeachment.
More in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
Well, he
war.
lied. He got us into the war with lies.
Now, he's right. Bush did get us into a war with lies. And Pelosi did have the opportunity to impeach. And when she was asked about it, she said she doesn't want to go through this divisive process. And she also kind of made this point of she didn't want to have this kind of seesaw where they impeach Bush, then she impeaches Bush. But the catch here is Bush did lie us into a war. Bush did have a gulag off the side of, in this kind of legal quagmire near Cuba. Bush did get 4,000 Americans killed. There were 1 million dead Iraqis. We are still in those wars to this day. We did have black sites all across the world. And we were torturing people, which is literally against our laws. and Pelosi couldn't be bothered. Couldn't be bothered. But this reaches the standard of impeachment. A conversation that one party in the conversation said never took place, and the president of that country says didn't happen. And this raises to the level of impeachment. Even if I believe you that Trump wanted an investigation into Biden, I could believe that. I would even go so far as to say that's improper. And I would even want to rap the president on the knuckles, maybe with a censure, as a compromise position from, let's just rip him out of office, something that you wanted to do from day one, as opposed to, we don't like the president doing this and we need to rap him on the knuckles for it. The irony of it is that the Democratic Party was doing the same thing against Trump in the last election. I mean, come on. Ultimately, the Democratic Party, Tlaib, had an operative that was working with the Ukrainian embassy here in the United States. They've owned up to that, where she was trying to get information in order to attack Trump. And just so happened, they did give that information up on Manafort with this notion of trying to ding Trump. And when Trump got in office, Politico wrote an article that the Ukrainians were concerned because they tried to actually stop that Trump from getting in office. If you are part of the Ukrainian government, you're a submissive government at this point, and you know in your head Hillary Clinton is going to win that race. Does it harm you in your head to do things that may help her? And in helping her, may have her look that much more favorably on you. That makes all the sense in the world from the standpoint of the Ukrainian government, and that's exactly what they did. And now people are hollering about Trump doing effectively the same, with the exception of him being in office as president. Fair enough. I don't like that Trump did that. But impeachment seems like a shooting yourself in the foot thing. As opposed to making the argument that Trump failed, you've introduced an unpredictable quantity. Meaning, it's one thing to have a deflated populace where you can continuously make this drumbeat that Trump failed, Trump failed, Trump failed, and give a list of the things that Trump said he was going to do and a list of the things to which he didn't do. But instead, you've given him a secondary political argument. This argument that as soon as I got in office, they tried to nullify me from jump. They initiated a conspiracy theory where Hillary Clinton was working with the intelligence services in some way. And now they're trying to use this to impeach me. They have never accepted the result. That's going to be his argument. This grand conspiracy theory that is out to get him. And to some degree, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that people aren't out to get you. In this case, they were. And you've given him that argument in spades by not finding George Bush to be worthy of impeachment, but finding Trump to be worthy of impeachment. And again, the problem here is you didn't move the dial one bit, meaning the public doesn't entirely go along with it. I'm not going to keep this long. I just didn't like the first video that I did. Tulsi Gabbard in this abstained. She didn't, she wasn't there for roll call. But a president is impeached. And that president defiantly is holding a barn burner, stadium full rally at the time of his impeachment. Defiant. He will not be removed from office. That's what you need to understand. He's not going anywhere. And not just not being removed from office. He will excel from this that much more powerful. The Republican Party was able to raise $130 million. The Democratic Party is broke. Trump was able to raise, $27 million in one of the months. I think it was October or September. Again, these numbers are dwarfing what all of the Democratic candidates are raising. And it is powered, small dollar donations, by people who are angry and pissed off that the Democratic Party never accepted the results of the election. And it comes across to them as if you're attacking their guy. And this is the defense of their guy. This will backfire. Mark my words. This will backfire. And it will get that much worse if you put somebody like a Biden to run up against him. And by the way, I was told that Sanders gave a vocal of support for this. You may disagree with me on this. I don't think Sanders is a choice. The objective of Sanders is to win the presidential race. In order to do that, he's running as an independent from people who don't entirely trust that he's a Democrat. Many of those people are part of the resistance, and many of those people would potentially vote for him. He is stuck to some degree in towing a particular line. You could say I am giving him a pass on it. Yes, I am to some degree, because Trump is not going to get impeached in the Senate. These things, to me, are dependent upon the environment and the circumstance. He will tarnish his rep. This is kind of the same reason that Tulsi Gabbard didn't vote for the bill, meaning Tulsi Gabbard didn't necessarily want to burn herself from her, let's say, more right-wing elements. But by the same token, she didn't entirely agree with the premise of the impeachment. She decided to abstain. Sanders, in this case, however, is running in a political race where he is trying to win. And in him trying to win, he believes that there are certain things that he needs to do so. So he decides to vote yay, or at the very least gives vocal support to the people for voting yes. Of the candidates, however, aside from Tulsi, he seemed to be less interested in having this particular conversation. It was more so dragged to this point, just like Nancy Pelosi was dragged to this particular position. Nevertheless, you got what you wanted. You got your cathartic release. Now what? And now what takes place is Trump running from pillar to post across the nation, saying that this was a witch hunt. This was a witch hunt. You came to get me. The Senate will give him their seal of approval and say he's clean, and he will pivot from that point and attack you once again. These guys had the Russiagate investigation that was made of smoke. They had the Ukrainian investigation, and I was pardoned by the Senate, or I was cleared by the Senate, and they never accepted the election results. They never accepted the election results. This will be the argument, as opposed to the straightforward, basic argument of Trump failed. The impeachment argument is unpredictable, especially looking at the money that they're raising as opposed to the money that the Democratic Party is raising. And if you look at the polling, Trump's approval rating is still up. It hasn't budged. In fact, he's getting some of the highest approval numbers that he's been getting in his entire presidency. And by the way, while this president is being impeached, they've also given him a $738 billion military budget. And it sounds like Pelosi is going to give him NAFTA 2.0. This is not a win, even though I know many of you think it's a win. This is not a good series of events. I'll leave this here. I just didn't like the last video. Like, share, subscribe. Trudy's here. What's going on, Trudy? Trudy, you should be happy today. You should be happy today. You got what you want. I hope you didn't get what you want and then Trump wins the next election. Because if you're going to go for his head and not be able to take it, it is only going to make him stronger. Nothing in this process has weakened him, whether you realize it or not. And it's one thing to say he did something wrong. It's another thing to say you need to rip him out of the office for doing something wrong. And this, again, many of these people didn't think it was necessary to get Bush. I mean, for fuck's sake, Trump has gone into another country and literally stole the oil from that country. And the Democratic Party, for the most part, don't find that to be one of those things that's necessary for impeachment. The President of the United States has appropriated resources from another country that don't belong to him. And the Democratic Party think that's okay. But this is the thing that they need to get him on. A conversation that two people who were supposedly involved say never took place and that the quid pro quo didn't exist. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. My contention is, yes, you got your cathartic release. No, you're not going to like it. And some of this depends on who gets out of the election, right? I mean, there's some people who will feed into it a little bit more than others. Look, I've said it before, I think Bernie Sanders is the best matchup against Trump. Everybody else, I think, is weaker than that. And this argument for impeachment is going to be something that he is going to be using as a weapon. It's going to be using him as a weapon. You got what you wanted. I hope you like it. Like, share, subscribe.